As this episode kicks off, I want you thinking about some adventure, some idea, some business, some fitness goal that you have that you just haven't quite said yes to completely. This interview is going to help remind you why you should absolutely go for it. You are listening to the Mindset Forge podcast. It is season 3, episode 41, and this podcast is all about stories from athletes and performing artists on how they show up for the big moments of life, how their mindset and their experiences help shape the way they show up for the moments that matter most, and what we can learn from those stories and those ideas that they share. I'm your host, Barton Bryan. I'm a former actor and singer, I'm a personal trainer, and I'm an athlete. And I love helping people discover new mindset shifts that can help you show up big for the moments of your life that matter most, whether you're an athlete or performer or just someone who wants to be 1% better every single week. This episode's interview with Davidson really shines a light on how having an adventurous spirit and going after the big ideas that you have in your life is a mindset that we all need to lean into even more. Allie's adventurous spirit and fearlessness propels her choices in life and led her to play D1 basketball and try out for American Gladiator the TV show. And just as strong as her sense of adventure is her heart for helping others through her life's work. As you listen to the episode, ask yourself this. Is there one thing that you're holding back on that Allie's story might inspire you to take a new leap at? Whether you're a regular listener to my podcast or a Camp Gladiator camper wanting to hear Allie's story, buckle up. This amazing lady is a powerhouse and with a heart of gold. So without further ado, Davidson. So if someone Googles you, they're going to see female CEO of the year in Texas. We're going to see Camp Gladiator and all about that. You scroll down a tad, you winning American Gladiator the TV show as a female champion back in 2008. There's some awesome videos of that too. Tell me the story of how that all came about.
I grew up in Austin, Texas, and played every sport possible growing up. Sports and fitness was always a big part of my life, and being on a team, I just loved that. I played college basketball, and after I graduated from college, I was like, man, what am I supposed to do with my life? And so I always kind of love to do these spontaneous, adventurous things. This was February 1st, 2008. So the night before my wedding, my sister runs up to me. She was my maid of honor. And she goes, hey, Allie, do you want to do one last crazy thing before you get married? And I was like, yeah, of course. She knows me very well. And she knows that this is, would totally be something up my alley. And so the next morning we wake up, me and my bridesmaids, and we basically sneak out of the house. And we go missing, runaway bride type situation. Nobody knows where we are. My parents don't know where I am. Jeff has no idea what's going on. And this is just a couple hours before the actual wedding ceremony. And by the time we get to the tryouts, it was at a local gym here in Austin, 10 minutes from the church. There were already 2,000 people in line to try out for this show. And so my sister's like, what have I done? Allie's going to wait in this line and miss the wedding. Like, this is going to be a disaster. And so we had to come up with something. Our idea was to throw on my veil and my garter and to run up to the front of the line, beg the producers to let me cut. And so luckily, my bridesmaids posse and we do that. And of course, everybody in line thinks that we're lying. And I'm like, no, I really have to get to the church. Like, this is for real. I'm getting married in just a couple hours. And so luckily the producers let me cut the line and do the tryout. Fortunately for me, the tryout was very catered towards my sports background. It was sprints on a basketball court. It was some burpees. It was some pull-ups. I'm like, okay, this is what I've done my whole life. So I did really well in the tryouts. And then we raced back just in time to basically pat myself off of the sweat that was on me. Not enough time for a full shower. Just kind of toweled myself off, threw on some makeup, put my hair up really quick, and basically walked down the aisle and got married that day. And Jeff had no idea what had happened until we got announced to go into the reception. And I was like, hey, babe, guess what I did today? And he's like, oh, I don't know. Your hair, your makeup, hopefully you prayed about our marriage. And I was like, well, kinda. I did a little bit of those things, but mainly I tried out for a TV show today. And so he was very shocked, to say the least. But it obviously all worked out because we got the call back the day after I got back from the honeymoon, actually, to come for the final auditions for the show.
The crazy aspect of that is that the mindset of so many brides on the day of their wedding is like, this is the most important day. This is the day you've been dreaming about your whole life. Like every little thing, the nuance, the hair, the makeup, and all you're thinking about is like, what adventure can I go on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not the type of girl that was worried about how the flower arrangements were looking or how the table setting was looking. I don't even think I checked on that or knew about that at all. But, it definitely just started as something fun to do on the day of my wedding, something memorable, something adventurous and spontaneous. I've always had that spirit about me. And it was pretty funny because when we went on the honeymoon, Jeff kept making fun of me. He's like, well, you better go work out. You might, get picked to be on this show. And I mean, I never in a million years thought I was going to actually get picked to be on the show. I just thought it was going to be something fun that I did on the day of my wedding as a memory with my friends. God had other plans. And right when we got back, they called me up to be on the show. And so it turned into much more than that.
And you were able to get Jeff on the show with you. How did that conversation go there?
So basically, if you can imagine, I get back from the honeymoon. And like I said, the very next day, NBC producers call me and say, hey, we want you to fly out to LA for 3 weeks to do the final auditions for the show. And by the way, if you get picked to be on the show, you're going to be there for another 6 weeks. So you could be gone for up to 9 weeks. Mm-hmm. And this is right after I get married. So if you can imagine going and telling your new husband, remember that show I tried out for? Like, I actually got picked to be on it. I got to go for 9 weeks. Bye. And so I told him that, and luckily he was very supportive. He said, yeah, you got to go do it. I know you want to do it. So I take off to LA, and while I'm doing the final auditions, I have some opportunities to speak to the producers, and I start telling them about how athletic and awesome my new husband is. And I slowly convinced them into letting Jeff try out to be on the show with me. And I was like, hey, we could be in like a newlyweds episode. This would be awesome. And they actually liked the idea. And so they called him up and they invited him to be on the show. Now, what was hilarious about this whole part was as soon as they hung up the phone with him, of course, I called Jeff and I was like, babe, isn't this awesome? They want you to be on the show. And he's like, no, this is terrible. He's like, I don't want to be wearing spandex on national TV. I've got a real job. I can't be away for 9 weeks. And so he was basically just furious that I had done this. But eventually I convinced him, I'm like, you got to get up here. This is fun. And so luckily his boss gave him the opportunity to go. And
I love it. And hey, he married you. He knew what he got in for when he married you.
Yeah.
All right. So we could spend an hour talking about all the ins and outs of the show, but let's go to the final obstacle course. Like, it's you and another lady, and it's like basically you've got to be the first one. Like, talk about that moment, just what you were thinking about and the mindset around that.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously there's a lot of pressure. You're very nervous, because it's not just you running through an obstacle course. It's you running through an obstacle course with 20 cameras on you and knowing that 9 million viewers are going to watch this, right? That was the weekly average viewership. I think the biggest thing was learning how to calm my nerves. I was thinking to myself, I think I can do well in this obstacle course. They don't let you practice anything, by the way. So they just throw you out there because that makes for a lot better TV,
sure.
Just to see what happens if you've never had a practice run through. But yeah, I think a lot of it was just learning how to control those nerves. And learning what our advantages were. As an example, there was a cargo net climb that was part of this obstacle course. Okay. Jeff and I never climbed a cargo net before. And where would I have ever climbed one? And this was like a 40-foot cargo net. This was a big part of the race. And so we only had one off day in the 6 weeks we were filming. And in that one off day, we spent the whole day researching any place in the California area that had a cargo net that we could go practice on to get an advantage. And so we drove 3 hours each way to go practice for an hour on a cargo net. And that gave us just a little advantage of learning that skill set. I was trying to think of any and every way I could get through that course in the fastest, most efficient way possible. But even if you plan it and rehearse it and run it through in your mind, which is the only thing that we could do, you still have to overcome the nerves. And I think that was the biggest thing that I had to learn how to do, is just say, God, this is your race. It's up to you. I don't know what's going to happen, and just do my best and be okay with the outcome. Yeah. So, but I was fortunate enough to go on and win the whole season for the females in 2008.
So then you come home and you can't talk about it. How long is that period of time when they're editing and figuring out all the marketing that you can't say anything?
Yeah, and this is the craziest part of the story, in my opinion, because I win the show. the last filming of that last grand finale obstacle course was late at night. I think that we didn't even wrap up filming until like midnight. And of course, then we're celebrating with our, family. Luckily, my parents and siblings were there to watch, and Jeff was there to watch. So we went out to celebrate after that. And I kid you not, shows like that, they want to wrap so quickly and get you out of there so they can not have to continuously spend money on having the whole cast there. Sure. So they had me on a flight back home the next morning at 8 a.m. And I was sitting back in my normal cubicle at my normal job by 1 p.m. the next day. Oh, and if you can imagine, and I can't tell anybody what's happened, by the way, okay? I've been gone for 9 weeks. They fly me home, and I cannot act like anything has changed in my life, anything out of the ordinary, right? I can't tell anybody what's happened until the grand finale airs. You sign a lot of contracts to keep that all confidential. And so this emotional roller coaster that I've been on of getting married and then fighting gladiators and then winning the show, and then now I'm back at my normal job, and it's 3 months of silence before the grand finale airs, before anybody can know what's happened. Yeah. And so for those 3 months, man, I went back to my normal job every day. And I'll tell you this, it was not near as much fun as fighting gladiators every day. So it wasn't as much fun going back to my normal job. But more than that, I really, truly felt a calling during that time period of like, hey, Allie, you were put on this show for a reason. Like God gave you an amazing opportunity. Like you got to go do something with this, right? Like don't let this just be wasted. And so I started thinking and praying about like, what could this mean? Is there something bigger behind this? And so Jeff and I came up with the idea of launching an adult outdoor group fitness program. And, knowing my background and history in sports and fitness, that's where we came up with the idea. That was always my passion. And in 2008, the boot camps were starting to become very popular, but it was more so the military style boot camp. And I was like, well, I can't pull off that personality. I'm not going to be in combat boots yelling at people. That's not,
think you've ever worn camo.
That's not my style at all. But kind of that sports and team element is my style. And I kind of thought, I think that I could create this fitness program and kind of have that be the basis, the theme behind it, little gladiator theme, little sports theme, little team theme in there. And that's where the idea behind Camp Gladiator started.
Yeah. Well, I want to go deep into that, but before we do, I do want to jump back into your basketball days and a freshman at Ole Miss. Now, you played AAU in high school and were successful in high school as an athlete, but you weren't recruited for Ole Miss. You didn't have a scholarship, correct? Correct. And you just decided, I'm going to go to Ole Miss and I'm going to try out for the team. As an 18-year-old freshman, there's a mindset around like, hey, I want to do this. I want to go put myself out there and make this team. So talk about that. There has been moments in my life where I have felt some pretty strong callings to go try something or to go do something. And this is an example of one of them that definitely changed my life. So in high school, I played 4 different varsity sports. I was, playing every sport: volleyball, basketball, softball, cross country, played, soccer for many years growing up. And I really loved all sports and was really a variety athlete, but basketball was kind of always my number one best sport and the sport I had the most passion for. And I did really well in high school, but I didn't come from a high school that was really well known for basketball. And so I really didn't get many looks from, college coaches. And so most of my offers for scholarships were to either D2 or D3 schools. And for whatever reason, I had actually verbally committed to go to a different school, but just something was kind of tugging at my heartstrings. Allie, I think that you can go for more, try for more. And so the summer after I graduated high school, I was really fortunate and blessed that I had a really great AAU summer. I was named to the AAU All-American team. And I think that I had a couple of coaches during that summer that really just believed in me and said, Allie, you could go D1 and, even be named to that All-American team above a lot of my other peers that were D1 athletes and had full scholarships. I think for the first time ever, I kind of had the confidence to say, yeah, I think that I could do this. And so another crazy story in my life, I called up the school that I had verbally committed to 1 week prior to school starting. I already had a roommate. I still feel bad about this today, but it's just what had to happen.
I called them up and said, hey, I'm not going to come to this school. I appreciate that you guys were wanting me on the team, but I'm actually going to go try to be on a D1 program. And
this was a D2 school here in Texas?
This was a D3 school because
okay.
they were going to let me play 2 sports.
Okay.
So I chose a D3 school, and I was going to play both basketball and softball in college. I just felt like I was called to do something different. And so Ole Miss had randomly kind of seen one of my games that summer, and one of the coaches had reached out and said, hey, if you ever want to come as a walk-on, we would let you have an opportunity as a walk-on. And so I don't know what it was, but I just felt like it was the right thing to do. So a week before school started, I headed in a different direction, drove to Mississippi, had never been to that school before, had never taken a visit, didn't know a single person there. And I said, I'm going to go for it. And I worked my tail off to not only make the team, but to stand out, because as a walk-on, you have to really prove yourself. Everybody else out there is on scholarship. And so I told myself a couple of things. The first thing I told myself was, Allie, every time we do suicides at the end of practice, that's the hardest part of the practice, the conditioning part. I said, every time we do a suicide, I'm going to win every suicide, because that was something I could control. That was something I know I could put forth the max amount of effort towards and get noticed. And so I did. I got noticed by that, and they saw the effort I was putting in. I would show up early to practice, stay late, shoot tons of shots a day on my own. And I was fortunate enough that I made the team. And then luckily, maybe second game of the season, they finally called up my name to go into the game.
Mm-hmm. So you'd made the team, but you were on the bench. I made the team,
but I was on the bench.
Right.
Yeah. And for some reason, I'm not thinking I'm going to play very much at all. They call my name up in the second game of the season. I'm like, me? Who, me? They put me in the game. We were losing the game, and they put me in the game, and I'll never forget, I got my first pass passed to me. I caught it. I closed my eyes. I kid you not. I closed my eyes, and I threw up a 3-point shot, and it went in. And I was like, what just happened? And I'm like, it was amazing. Anyway, I was super fortunate because just 8 minutes of playing before halftime, and I actually made 3 other 3-pointers. And so going into halftime, I was already the leading scorer of that game.
She had 4 threes in like 7 minutes.
It was insane. So it was an incredible moment. I had another good handful of games, and then 2 games later, the coach pulls me up to the front of the bus after a road trip game, and he said, Allie, we want to offer you a full scholarship.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like in tears, basically. And then the next game after that, I was actually in the starting lineup. Was really fortunate to have a great season, and it was just a wild ride. I really went just a big leap of faith, and luckily it worked out. Yeah.
What shines through continuously in your stories is just your trust in God and belief in yourself, and just going after this dream that you have. And I think there's so many people out there that would never just, I'm just going to go to Ole Miss and see what happens. And
yeah.
A testament to just when you put yourself out there, what can be possible.
Yeah.
So what happened after that season?
Yeah, so I had a great season. I really loved being there. If you know much about college sports, basketball, unfortunately, has the worst schedule of all of them, because you basically never get to come home between Thanksgiving, Christmas, and even spring break, and then they want you to stay there for the summer. And so we had gone through a family tragedy, and I didn't want to miss some of the most important years, I think, of being close to my family. And so I made one of the hardest decisions of my life after earning that scholarship to then transfer to be closer to home, basically, closer to family. And so I actually transferred to go play at Texas State University, and then finished my career there and was on scholarship there.
So what kind of happened there that made you feel like you needed to come home?
Well, at a high level, my family had lost a couple of family members in a pretty, tragic way. And for anybody that's lost family members, I think you can relate to, that's a really sensitive time for a family in which you want to be close to family. You want to, spend your time with them, and you don't want to miss out on those really important healing years, and, years when you need to be connected more than ever. And so, just made the decision to come back home. It was a hard decision, and I was bummed to, in some ways, move away from what I'd built, athletic wise at Ole Miss, but then I was able to transition in nicely to a school that was much closer to home, only 45 minutes away, and still be on a basketball scholarship and do what I wanted to do. And so luckily both those ended up working out. Nowadays though, you look back and you're like, dang, if I knew now what I knew then, would I have transferred to a different school or gone to UT?
Maybe the WNBA was around there. That was kind of coming out right around the time that you were probably in college, right?
Yeah.
The WNBA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say that was kind of one of the things that I wish I would have maybe gone for, is to try to play at the University of Texas, right here in Austin. But, for whatever reason, I was meant to be there and it worked out. And that's where Jeff and I actually continued dating our long distance relationship for actually 6 years while I was going through college and graduated and all that.
Yeah. Let's go back to the Camp Gladiator, in those 3 months of trying to figure out what you're going to do next. And clearly the desk job that you had wasn't cutting it. Talk about that kind of special moment and the kind of the magic behind starting Camp Gladiator.
Keep in mind, I was pretty young at the time. I had just turned 25. And so I say that because I was learning a lot about life and about business. And I just knew that I had a passion. I knew I was excited about this, and I've learned a ton, along the way. But basically, during that 3-month period, we said, okay, we want to open up this adult outdoor group fitness program. We're going to call it Camp Gladiator. And we kind of got everything for the business kind of secretly lined up. So when the grand finale aired, we would be ready to really promote the business and capitalize on that opportunity in that very small
15
window.
15 minutes of fame.
15 minutes. Yeah. And maybe it was 8 minutes of fame that we've been, juicing every ounce that we can out of it since then. I always love this part of the story because the day the finale aired, I actually walked into my boss's office at 5:01 p.m. and I said, hey, this is going to be my last day. I had to quit because I had to go all in with this new chapter of my life. And so I quit that job and I drove straight to my watch party, and we had rented out a movie theater to watch the grand finale.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And as soon as people see me win, I run up to the front and I basically say, hey guys, guess what? If you want to come train with me, you're in luck, because I'm opening up this new fitness company and I want you guys to come work out with me. And so I gave myself 4 weeks before the first official camp started to, get signups and promote it and get people to, come out to camp. And for 2 weeks after the finale aired, of course, I had all these obligations to do news interviews, newspaper, radio, whatever. And so, of course, every time I did an interview, I am promoting my new business. I'm plugging the new business. I'm saying, check us out at campgladiator.com. Well, after 2 weeks straight of doing that nonstop, I actually had 0 signups. 0 signups for camp. And I was like, what have I done? I'm going to look like an idiot. Like, I quit my job. And I really do look back on that moment, and I'm so thankful that I had that moment, because it was like I got punched in the stomach. And what I learned in that moment is like, Allie, just because you were on a TV show, who cares? Like, big freaking whoop-de-doo. That does not mean that people are just going to sign up for your business and it's going to be this easy and it's going to be this successful. And so what I learned in that moment is I really and truly learned that I was going to have to hustle and make this work and do whatever it takes to launch this business. And for the next 2 weeks before the first camp started, I did anything and everything you could think of to go out and meet people in the local community, guerrilla style marketing, pounding the pavement, just meeting people any and every way possible, flyering cars, meeting people in the park, joining networking groups, everything. And the first day of the camp rolls around and I had 40 campers that signed up. But very importantly, not one of those people just signed up because I was on the TV show or they heard me promoting the show. They had all signed up because I had personally met them and invited them out to camp and followed up with them.
And another leap of faith, walking into your boss's office, 5:01, be like, peace, mic drop.
Right.
So often what people struggle with is they hedge their bets. I'm going to kind of do this for a while I'm kind of feeling out this other thing. And sometimes the most successful people are the people that just say, this is me now. This is who I am. I'm all in. Let's see what happens. Yeah.
I mean, it was a do or die situation. Like, I was 2 weeks prior to the first workout ever starting and I had nobody signed up. Another part of that story is after I started hustling and getting out there and meeting people, I finally had my first sign up. And I was so happy and excited. I got my first ever sign up. And then I was like, oh no. And the only thing worse than 0 people signed up for your boot camp is 1 person signed up. So I got these very loud wake up calls, and it was like, there was no plan B.
Yeah. There's 2 things. As an athlete, winning American Gladiator is a very individual achievement. That can be a very beneficial thing to kind of the mindset of an entrepreneur. But you also have really kind of embraced teamwork. So I want to go back to basketball days. I mean, as a basketball player, team is a big part of why you're successful or not. And so talk about maybe what you learned as a basketball player at Ole Miss or at Texas State that really helped guide you into being a leader and an entrepreneur.
I don't really remember games. I don't really remember the scores to the games. All that's very blurry to me at this point. What I do remember, though, is I remember hanging out in the locker room before the game with my friends. And I remember being on the bus rides and us doing something silly, and having those inside jokes and those friendships. And those are the things that stick with you. Those are the things that matter most. That's a big reason why I fell in love with sports, is because I fell in love with being around other people, right? And I fell in love with, having a common goal that we all work together towards. When you're scoring a basket for yourself, that's nice. You want to score baskets. But when you can get to a place where you're just as excited to see your friends score a basket, that's where it gets really meaningful. And I knew that those relationships were so key in really forming the bonds and the connections to make a team environment special. And if you have a special team environment, your team will do really special and cool things like winning games and winning championships. Yeah. So I think it starts with that. And my hope with starting CG was really to pass that on to others. I felt like I had been blessed by being on so many great teams, and I had had so many coaches and so many parents that had poured into me for so long. Really, when I started CG, I just wanted to give that back to people. I wanted to kind of pay it forward and say, hey, I've been blessed with such awesome experiences and opportunities. I want to bless others with that same thing. And so there was never like this grand vision of what CG can become. It was like, hey, this is a great way for me to serve and give back because of all that I've received throughout my life.
Yeah. The concept of boot camp is not new. You talk about kind of the military style boot camp, which was somewhat popular at the time. I know that in Austin, there was other CrossFit style boot camps happening in Zilker Park. And so there was other competitors doing it. But you created this really team-based, fun, interactive community feel. Like, what do you think it is about what you were able to create with Camp Gladiator and passing that on to trainers that really just made this whole thing take off?
That's a great question. I think it's a combination of a handful of things. I would say, first off, the workout experience is unique in that it's challenging but fun. It is going to kick your butt for sure. And we're going to make you work hard, but at the end of the day, you're going to be laughing and smiling and high-fiving people and forming friendships, right? And so it's this unique environment where it's positive. There's tons of energy and there's a contagious spirit about it if you're around it that makes you want to keep coming back. During the actual workouts, we do a lot of team elements, a lot of partner competitions or team competitions to where you're motivated in a different way to want to win. It's not just a trainer who's giving you a list of exercises. We try to do it in a creative way with some fun, competitions and that sort of thing to kind of pull it out of you and get the most out of you. Another component is that it's not just a workout. It really is living a lifestyle with these people. And so you'll see that a big part of CG is the culture and the community around it. And so we don't just, do a 60-minute workout. We might go rock climbing or stand up paddleboarding or run a 5K together. You name it, we've done it across the nation. And it's because we really see that people need this community. They want to be a part of the culture. They want to be a part of the team. And it goes way further than just doing some push-ups and burpees and sprints. And I think that's where you see the real life impact and transformation happen in people, is when they really feel included in that community and when they really buy into it and become a part of it being really their lifestyle.
Talk about being a mom and how rewarding that's been for you to kind of go from like full-time CEO, trainer, like flying all over the country, doing all these things for Camp Gladiator, to being a mom of 3.
Yeah. So first off, I had no idea how much fun it would be. Man, I told my husband the other day, I'm like, I'm excited to learn about dinosaurs again because I'm learning about dinosaurs with my 4-year-old, right? And, I'm excited to go ice skating again and talk about volcanoes. And I took my daughter to an art class this past weekend. Like, never in a million years would you ever have found me at an art class on a Saturday. But it was something that she loved, something she wanted to do. And, you know, as a parent, like, you get to experience all these things all over again. And they have a whole new level of joy, right? Because you get to do it with your kid. And so it's just incredible. I love it. Our kids are wild and they're crazy and they're fun and they're loud. And we're just having a great time with it. I mean, it obviously takes a ton of energy and time, but it's the most fun thing I've ever done. Yeah. It's the continuation of living that adventurous life. I think when you have your first kid, it's not too much of an adjustment. But when you get to kid number 2 and 3, you're like, okay, this is the big leagues here. And so I've definitely had to learn as a CEO that I've got to find a sustainable pace for my life. The first 8 years of the business, I'm just sprinting everywhere at all times. And that's not really sustainable for the long haul, right? 8 years is probably too long to be doing that. You're going to eventually get burnout. And so what I have really adopted now is finding a sustainable pace that I can move at for a long period of time, because I want to be doing this for many more decades. And then asking myself, what are the essentials? What are really the most important parts of the business? And focusing on those and not getting distracted or tied up in the details. And then the last thing I would say is I've really had to set some firm boundaries in my life and say, hey, there's certain days where I'm not having any meetings past 4:30 p.m. because I got to get to my kids' soccer practice. I'm a soccer coach, by the way, for the team. And nice. So there's some boundaries that have to be set and protected and enforced in order to, you know, have the fulfillment in life with family and work that I think we all strive for.
No, it's a delicate balance. So like many athletes, you've had 3 knee injuries over the course of your life. Talk about what you've learned from those injuries and how that's shaped who you are now.
Yeah, I have definitely had my fair share of injuries. So 3 knee surgeries, 2 of those were complete ACL tears and reconstructions and meniscus and you name it. I've had it with the knees, and broken neck survivors. So had a broken neck snow skiing when I was 21 years old. And so those are 3 pretty big injuries. Along with, you know, having 3 kids. Those are also big injuries. The thing that you learn, I think, going through that is you really become so grateful for the times when you're not injured. Mm-hmm. I think it makes you not take for granted the times and the days when you do feel okay. I want to work out every day. I love to work out. That is the thing that gives me energy every single day. I've gone through so many days where that wasn't an option. And those are the hard days. It's not hard if you're doing a hard workout. The hard days are when you have to sit on the sidelines because you've got some kind of injury.
You know, Camp Gladiator has 85,000 bold campers. What's one thing that you would want all of them to know about you, Allie?
First of all, I would want to tell them thank you. Thank you for being our members and for believing in what we're doing and being a part of our mission. I would also want to tell them that we really and truly do care about them. We care about their story. We care about their journey. We care about them as a person. And really, we believe that we're here to serve them. You know, I started CG because I just saw it as an opportunity for me to give back to others, because so many people had poured into my life and had given me so much great coaching or mentorship or whatever it was. And I just felt like it was my turn to give back to the community. And so that's what we're here for, is just to give back to them, to pour into their lives, and to hopefully be the best part of their day, or 60 minutes of amazing, and to bring that to them. And I hope that they're experiencing the community and really the love that is CG.
What's that thing in your life that you've been wanting to say yes to so badly, but you've just been holding back? What are you waiting for? There is no perfect moment. I remember 2 years ago when I wanted to start this podcast, I actually said to myself, I'm going to wait till January and start it then. For no reason, just because January felt like the obvious time for me to start it. But it was October. What was I waiting for? I realized that, and I said, okay, I got to do this. It's in my heart. I'm going for it. And I started my podcast on October 15th. So I'm asking you to do the same. What's that thing that you really want to start but you just haven't? Let Allie's story help motivate you to just do it. For more information, go to the show notes and check out the links on Camp Gladiator, more about Allie, a YouTube link for American Gladiator Final Obstacle Course, and much more. And last but not least, please share this episode with one person that you know would get a lot out of Allie's story. Thank you so much for listening to the Mindset Forge podcast.